Welcome to the Worth the Fight podcast, where we bring you powerful conversations surrounding the sensible and therapeutic use of psychedelics and plant medicines towards healing trauma. I'll introduce you to guests who, through their own personal journey and transformation, tell the Worth the Fight story. I'm your host, Matt Simpson, author of Worth the Fight, Acting for a Better World, a guide to spirituality, psychedelic medicines, and overcoming trauma. Thank you for listening. My next guest on the Worth the Fight podcast is Roger Volodarsky, the CEO of Puffco. Roger is a Coney Island native who started off as a cannabis consumer who wanted more out of the experience than what the industry standard could provide. He saw this void as opportunity and started Puffco in 2013 with the goal of creating products that he wished existed and giving back to the culture that provided him with so much. He staffed an experienced in-house design team with the common mission of creating intuitive hardware that could provide the best possible platform for cannabis concentrates. The result was industry-leading innovation and making the magic of concentrates accessible to anyone who sought them. In our podcast conversation, we dive deep into Roger's journey and how intentionally using psychedelics and plant medicines has helped him work through a myriad of challenges, both personally and professionally. We examine Roger's shifting from recreational drug use to primarily using the plant medicines and psychedelics as teachers of self-awareness in an intentional manner to live a more purposeful life for himself, loved ones, and circle of influence. We talk flow states, peak experiences versus microdosing, psychedelic science, therapeutic healing interventions for PTSD, his personal experiences with DMT, and so much more. Roger is a beautiful man, charming, funny, vulnerable, and lighthearted, and unafraid to unabashedly share his truth and story of overcoming and great success. Super inspiring man. Without further ado, I give you my conversation with Roger Volodarsky. That's with a V. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy our conversation. I am here with Roger Volodarsky at the Puffco headquarters here in Los Angeles. How are you doing, Roger?
Doing well. Roger Volodarsky.
Volodarsky. Oh,
We
okay.
can roll it.
Okay, I butchered it. Really great to have this time with you. We're in the conference room at your Puffco headquarters.
That's right.
And I'm interested as to what has been your motivation behind your work at your pioneering work at Puffco, which is pushing forward marijuana THC cartridges and vaporizing solutions.
Yeah, so we don't. I'll give a bit of an intro on the kind of work we've done. So Puffco is a vaporizer company. We're an ancillary company, meaning that we actually don't make products that are paired with cannabis and then sold with cannabis. Okay. We make products that you put concentrates into and vaporize.
Okay.
So we just make the vehicle that you
Okay.
use to get to the place, not the actual product
Gotcha.
that you're vaporizing. And yeah, what I've realized over time, my motivation is really to just do what I love every day. When I first started, I think there was this goal to, feel successful at what you're doing. I think that's everybody's kind of goal when they're kicking off any project. And I was a younger CEO at the time. I started Puffco just before I turned 30. I'm 36 now.
Okay.
And I think I had a lot to prove to myself. And very rough journey. Psychedelics definitely helped flip that journey around. But eventually I got to a place where I realized that I love the challenges that I go through every day. They're really, really hard, but I'm capable of beating them. And that's the best feeling in the world. So that's really what motivates what I do every single day, is that I feel like the challenges put in front of me are challenges that, I'm very excited to see if I can come close to defeating.
Wow, love that spirit.
Yeah,
You'd mentioned, some challenges along the way. I think that anybody that is in a position of doing great work in our world, goes through struggles and challenges to get there. What can you talk about some of the challenges? And you'd mentioned, that psychedelic medicines have been a powerful tool for you, and maybe you can shed some light on some
Sure.
healing experiences that you've had. Or
Yeah. So when it comes to challenges, I guess there are two sets of challenges that you'll experience at least as an entrepreneur, and one of those sets of challenges are just the challenges you experience with the business, and I've had a lot of those.
Yeah.
We lost our entire supply chain after we won Vaporizer of the Year in 2015. And that was devastating to have the most popular product in the space and not be able to make it. Those are some tough challenges, and things kept coming from that. But the bigger challenge was myself, was learning how to have a healthy relationship with the challenges in front of me and not tie my value to whether or not I can best those challenges. That was much harder and likely had a lot more damage. If you lose a bit of money or you lose your footing in an industry for a little bit, but you get it back, no big deal. But when your personal relationships start falling and you find that you have very, very toxic conversations with yourself, that's a much harder challenge to beat, because it exists with you at all times.
Sure.
So that was, for me, I think, definitely the tougher one. And
how did you work through those toxic conversations? I think we all have that from time to time, and I would imagine a lot of my listeners right now are maybe stuck in those loops.
I actually didn't start that journey with psychedelics. I started that journey with every variable that I can control. So I was exhibiting like toxic behavior. I wasn't being kind to the people in my life, and they were letting me know that seemingly all at once around August 2017. And I had a weird kind of ego death, not the ego death that you get with psychedelics, but the ego death where your reality fights back. It tells you that what you want from this world and the means that you're pursuing those wants are not quite lining up, and you have to come to terms with how you're chasing your dreams. And I started with therapy. I had since then I've lost about 100 pounds.
Wow!
So I started with
congratulations.
Therapy.
That's
Thank you.
You look great.
Thank you. Yeah. No. Now I feel great about myself. I just tried and failed this week at being a vegan, so that's
that happened. That's a tough, unrealistic expectation.
My
that's
latest push, but I literally just invested in myself. I got a nutritionist. I got a boxing coach. I went to therapy. I started controlling my toxic variables, and then through therapy, I started kind of understanding what my ego was. And I'd used psychedelics before this, and I'd experienced the benefits of psychedelics before this. So I would experience something.
That might have started the process that,
totally
catalyzes and creates that a little additional awareness. And
sure, yeah, it helped me cope in hard times. Before I understood that I was my own problem, they would help me deal with myself. If you take a good amount of acid and you really fall deep down the hole, when you come back, you're so happy to have yourself back. You're so appreciative of yourself because there's less frustrations coming from you towards you when you experience that. And that was great, but I wasn't using it. It wasn't a part of my strategy for getting better.
So maybe you weren't intentional with it?
No,
Is that what
no. Okay. And it was really just something fun to do with friends. It would have me feeling really insightful afterwards. I would love all the benefits that I would get, but I was never using those benefits to work on myself.
Gotcha.
Once I started working on myself, I didn't use psychedelics, I think, for 6 months.
Okay.
So, and not by choice, it just how it
just
happened
the
to
way
be.
it was, yeah.
I was focusing on losing weight and getting healthier and becoming a kinder person. And on my birthday in 2018, we were on our way to Joshua Tree, and a buddy of mine was like, "Hey man, I have some mushrooms for you." And I was like, "I don't know, dude. Mushrooms make me lose my mind. I get like this gross type of uncomfortable, and I lose my mind." And he was like, "You ever try taking a little bit?" And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he was like, "Well, how much do you take?"
Not a heroic dose.
And I'm like, "I take, 3.5 to 5 grams when I take it." And he was like, That's
That's a
insane.
lot. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
lot.
it's what Terrence McKenna calls
Sure.
a heroic dose. And yeah, it's a bit heroic to take that because it's
Sure.
scary.
Well, and it puts a lot of pressure on the set and setting, and
Yes,
it, you know,
definitely.
3 to 5 grams if you're in a safe place and you know you properly prepared and you have the intention to go within, that can be an incredible journey. But 3 to 5 grams at a concert or in a loose container can be a nightmare.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
and it really, you know, we
Yeah.
open ourselves up to all these different energies when we engage these medicines, and
And my experience with these psychedelics up until this point was honestly mostly negative. The times that I'd taken mushrooms in my life, like I know so many friends that like called ambulances on themselves and like got scared, went in too deep and got too scared in that space. And acid was the first thing where I was like, this is interesting and weird and it's very scary, but the climb back to reality is so amazing that I learned to like acid. But then moving into this point on my birthday in 2018, I was effectively a new person. I was the person sitting in front of you today, the mindset sitting in front of you today, and not the toxic, insecure, hurt one that existed in 2017.
beautiful.
And so now when I take the mushrooms and have a conversation with the plants, it's a completely different conversation. I took just a little bit. I think I only took like a 1/4 gram of mushrooms, and it was like I had new eyes. Like everything around me was childlike special again.
Wow.
Interesting and beautiful for whatever it is, whether it's good or bad. Those things don't even exist. It's the first time I saw the world truly as I see it today, which is not as black and white as it once was. And then since then, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I ended up jumping too heavily into mushrooms. I started microdosing daily.
Okay.
Because I love that introspective thought and I wanted to carry it around. And I, very, very lucky, my brother was like, hey, dude, I think you're taking too much of this. Like, we're just about to go out for dinner. Why are you doing this? This is like not necessary. And I had to take a self-reflective look, and I found myself really frustrated with what he was saying, which is like a huge red flag that maybe you shouldn't be doing this. And so I took a month off just to make sure that it was easy, that I wasn't addicted, and that this wasn't a bad thing entering my life. Took 2 months off, no problem.
Yeah.
Ended up taking more time than I anticipated.
Well, they're non-addictive, and what comes to mind for me, you know, in your sharing, I just got back from the Psychedelic Summit, Psychedelic Science Summit in Austin, Texas, put on by MAPS,
Cool.
and just loads of inspiring science and where the psychedelic renaissance is heading. And Paul Stamets was one of the speakers, and he was talking about how you know, he's a leading mycologist, and when we take heroic doses of mushrooms, although they can provide a deeply therapeutic ego death, you know, like Terrence McKenna, you know, talks about and writes about.
Sure.
But when we take the microdosing, the science is showing that at the microdose level, we get the benefits of neurogenesis that are not happening when, which is the growth of new brain cells. That is not happening at the peak experience, but it's happening at the, you know, so there's more and more people that are talking about, and I think that you know, the risk profile of microdosing, if you're going to get the same benefits, and I certainly would recommend a peak experience for somebody who's earnestly seeking to heal from trauma, or the zealous seeker that wants to really test their mind and really want to test you know, their spiritual outlook. They're going to be tested, but it's great to see more and more people or our society adopt this microdosing protocol as something that is you know, that they're studying more and more and seeing the potential benefits of.
Yeah, it's once I jumped back on the horse, I actually did it by going on a hike. So I'm going to go on a hike. I'm just going to take a little bit of mushrooms, nothing that should impair me from being able to hike. And it was one of the most therapeutic experiences of my life. I disappeared. I felt like I faded away because I'm focusing on just one foot in front of the other and getting to the end of the trail. And so there's not a lot of places for my mind to wander.
Sounds very meditative.
Yeah. And then the first, the times that I snap back into place are usually when I'm struck by beauty, when I see a flower or when I see the sunset or just some pretty little clouds or something. That usually stops me in my tracks to just look at it. And I'll feel like for the next week or two, I'll have this introspective thought. And so I really started pushing what is the least amount that I have to take to be able to get these benefits. And what I found was that literally 1/4 gram, once to twice a week will probably give me everything that I need. I'm sure others are different.
And that fits right in with the best practices protocol that James Fadiman, a leading, it does. Yeah, he recommends every third or fourth day that we take a suboptimal dose and we give ourselves that time off between, our microdosing. Paul Stamets, I believe, recommends 2 days on and then 5 days off. So there's
Cool.
Both are different angles to take, but I'm happy to hear that you found a system that works, and happier to hear that you have people in your life that will I don't want to say, well, I'll say call BS on you.
Absolutely.
It's good. I have friends and people on my life, and we're on the path of altered states. We need to have people that aren't afraid to give us tough love when we need it, aren't afraid to step on our toes and challenge our ideas, challenge our behaviors. So I kudos to you for accepting that the constructive advice or feedback.
That's the new me. The new me has a really healthy relationship with growth. I feel like before I really changed myself and my relationship with myself, and used mushrooms to really help me see what works for me. Oh man, I lost my train of thought. God damn it.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit.
You're talking about the new me.
My relationship with growth. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no sweat.
So my relationship with growth currently is that I look for any opportunity to grow, any challenge, any, hey, Roger, you hurt me here. Hey, Roger, I would have liked to have seen this. Before, I just wanted to be accepted. Mm-hmm. When I was in the middle of all of my pain, that's all I really wanted, was just to feel like people valued the person I was. And people did value the person I was. They valued the qualities I have today. They didn't value the ones that were derived from the pain I was carrying around. Mm-hmm. Now, I get upset when I don't get feedback from people on how I can improve. I'm afraid that they're becoming complacent or that they don't care about me anymore. Because if I'm not getting negative feedback, I have no room to grow. There's not much I can do with positive feedback. It's nice. It's reassuring to hear sometimes, but I care most.
What you're saying is super inspiring to me right now. This openness to feedback I believe is the most important aspect for being on the growth path. And your mindset that you have right now, coupled with, having these exponential medicines and technologies of the mind to grow, is a dangerously good combination. So I just wanted to applaud that.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think that everyone should aspire to feel that way. It's tough. It's really tough. I mean, we're all humans. We all want to be loved by this reality. And I felt like most of my life I was not loved by this reality. Whether it was self-induced or not, it doesn't matter. I was not enjoying my time here. And now that, I've lost 100 pounds, like that feels impossible. I used to be an opiate addict back, must have been 10 years ago at this point, since I've been clean. That seemed impossible. So I've had a lot of impossible journeys now. And I know that if I'm unhappy with anything, time is the solution. I'm just going to work on it every single day. And eventually, I will not suffer from whatever is tripping me up today. And that mentality, it makes for a much more painless life. This reality is not easy. It's challenging for, I would think just about all of us. But it doesn't have to be so challenging when you like what it throws at you. And I hope that mentality is not too fragile. You know, it's tough to maintain when you're growing a business and we're going through exponential growth. There's a ton of pressure. We have a lot of innovations we're trying to bring to the table. It's scary. Sometimes, especially after like really high doses of cannabis, I get a little scared. I'm like, what am I doing? Am I crazy? Like, I'm running into fires that maybe I'm not really destined to survive. But then, you know, I'll take some mushrooms and the plants tell me something different. They tell me that even if I fail, it's just a part of the journey. It's what has to happen to get where I'm trying to go. So yeah, my relationship with growth and the challenges around me is no longer a toxic one.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Absolutely
and
beautiful.
I hope others are able to find a way to that place. Life becomes a lot easier.
Well, I applaud your openness and your vulnerability. I've given a lot of thought. Brene Brown's work comes to mind, and the paradoxical power of vulnerability. And we have a lot of these toxic masculine programs that shame vulnerability. And I think we're shifting into an age that where we can see the paradoxical power of vulnerability. And you know, when we're vulnerable with the people that we care about and the people we're working with, our loved ones, our intimate partners, the vulnerability builds trust. And without vulnerability, we don't have trust. And without trust, we can't have the good, authentic connection. And I believe that's why we're here. We're here to connect and have these deep and forge these deep bonds with our loved ones. And
Agreed. That is truly my biggest investment, is in relationships. That is the thing that I spend the most time on, and across the board. That's with people in my life. That's with a good amount of other CEOs in the industry, where I don't want to say that I coach them, but I didn't really have anybody helping me get through my toughest times as a mentor. My one buddy, Matt, shout out to Matt, he's probably going to listen to this, but my one buddy, Matt, is an experienced businessman who would definitely give me some advice, but I have been in uncharted waters for the past 6 years. It's hard to give advice to somebody who's doing something that hasn't quite been done before, with new challenges that others haven't experienced. And so now I spend a lot of my time trying to help other CEOs going through that. And they look at me as a person, very fortunate that they look at me as a person who has found success and is doing well with his mission.
Find peace of mind too, because at the end of the day, a lot of CEOs, you know, are stuck in the money game, and they have a tough time finding the peace of mind to accompany the success. You know, like Tony Robbins says, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. So I see a man who's got equilibrium and balance and peace and well-being. So perhaps they're attracted to that aspect of yours.
None of them are money chasers.
Okay.
I will not coach or help anyone who is trying to get rich. All of them are dream chasers.
Okay.
Every
Beautiful.
single one of them. Yeah. What I tell them is, it's okay. Everyone around you is probably saying, what's your exit strategy? And throwing a bunch of, when I really get into it and I smoke a good amount of weed with them, I'll be like, those are the oppressor's words, man. You can't use that to define what you are. And it's because I'm not doing Puffco to get rich. I mean, my goal is that I'm able to provide for myself and my family. Sure, that's not my main goal. That's a goal that's a part of doing this. If it was making it harder for me to provide for my family, it would be a tough decision to keep it going. But I do this because I am in love with what I do. I am in love with the relationships that I have in my organization, outside of my organization, the way we're able to touch people, the challenges that we have. We make things that didn't exist until we make them. We pull things out of this place where all things exist until they pick a group of individuals to make it a reality. Like, this feels like...
And your products are affecting the realities of your
So I find
people
other
that consume your products,
and I find other people on that same mission, and I let them know, like, you're not crazy, and don't think you're crazy because you're speaking to conventional businessmen that are sitting there worried about what your plan is to monetize. You're doing well, you're paying your bills, like you're monetized. Like you're fine. You don't have to sit here and figure out how to 1000x for an investor that only cares that they get to flip something. You're trying to do something you love every day.
Making a difference in the world.
And whether that's, growing cannabis or making edibles or making extracts or whatever it is, the people that are the best at it, these people sacrifice everything for their mission. They'll lose every dollar they have just to try to push themselves a little bit further and push their products a little bit further. And most of the times, if they're having my experiences that I had when I was doing that, people will think you're crazy. Like, you need investors, you need guidance. All you're doing is dream chasing. You're not actually focusing on how to become successful with what you do. And it's completely demoralizing. You feel like the part that makes you feel good is not, it's like wanting to become a musician, and next thing you know, you're playing bar mitzvahs. It's like, this isn't quite what I signed up for. I don't want to be a bar mitzvah DJ. I want to perform. So yeah, I do my best to help others see that if they're lucky enough to be in a position to be dream chasing and not losing their skin doing that, they have to give everything to that mission.
And I like that resonates.
Yeah, do my best to find people to help them with that.
Beautiful. From one dream chaser to another, what keeps you grounded in chasing your dream? There's such an important aspect to.
I have a lot of amazing people in my life. They'll all call me out of my bullshit. Okay. All of them. There's
community.
Yeah. I think that's it, but that's probably just a part of it. I'm confident. I'm confident. That's really what it is, and that's what it wasn't before. Before, I was insecure. I mean, I grew up extremely poor, and I was afraid that I was going to be running around trying to borrow money to, get the lights turned back on in the house. Like, that's a fear that I had as a teenager that I was carrying all the way into Puffco as a 30-something-year-old man. That made it hard to be grounded, because I was always running away from something. Now, I mean, I've done well. We've done well. We love what we do. We make products that we use every single day. Like, I'm confident that I can contribute to this reality in a meaningful way that will positively affect others. So I don't...
Very purpose-driven. I admire that.
Yeah, I don't need anything else. There's no... article that can be written about me. There's no celebrity that can endorse the company. Like, that's it. I'm just trying to hold on to that one feeling of confidently dream chasing. The confidence part is like the hardest part. It's like to me at least, the final frontier of dream chasing is when you're dream chasing and you're going to get what you're chasing. That's hard. It's really hard. It's only come to me in the past at most 2 years, probably less than that.
And I think it's the confidence that you speak of. There's a line that I have on in my mirror. It's my bathroom mirror at my house. It's confidence is the result. It's a counterintuitive aspect that my mentor Akshay, that's one of his taglines. He wrote a book called Fearvana, a very, very powerful book about looking at fear differently.
Cool.
And the idea that in our society there's loads of this self-help, motivational, inspiration stuff that's just nonsense in terms of,
Totally.
just be confident. It's like, no, confidence is a result from doing shit and from putting yourself out there and training and trying and continually getting back into the ring to get your ass kicked by life. And
Absolutely.
Then we become confident.
Absolutely, yeah. So I actually have a story on this. I'm driving with my buddy Avi, and I might have microdosed mushrooms that day, and we're driving through like the Angeles Mountains, and I have a crippling fear of heights. And I you might have heard that I go hiking, and I hike really, really high. that started with this drive with Avi. He's not afraid at all of heights. He'll climb to like the highest peak and hang off it and laugh and like, you know, smoke a joint and not even trip. I'll be holding on to everything next to me, fearing for my life. And as we're driving through these Angeles mountains, I'm looking at the peaks and I'm realizing, you know, Avi is running up this mountain. He's not looking at any of the variables that have nothing to do with him fucking up. I'm looking at every single thing of, ooh, I might slip here. I might fuck myself up over here. What if this rock slides over here? I'm looking at every single thing completely ignorantly, not knowing what actually would lead to my demise if I should fall or something should happen on a hike. Well, this guy is just running right to the top. He's noticing the actual things that might get in his way. If there's a snake on the floor or something else is going on.
Fully immersed in the
Fully immersed,
moments.
Yep, not afraid of anything. And I realized in that moment, like, I have to throw myself in there. I have to hike really, really high, uncomfortably high, until I get to the point where I'm like, I'm uncomfortable. I have to turn around. And that's what I did. And every single time I would get, now mind you, this is after losing 100 pounds. This is after already doing impossible shit and proving to myself that I can do what I deem impossible. And once I started getting to the top, every time it's less scary. It's still scary. I still, you know, Josephine Peak is one of the trails that I'll go to here in Los Angeles. And when I first got to the top, I was shaking. Like I had to like sit down and almost crawl down the tippy top of the mountain because I was so afraid. And then by the seventh time, it's just like, I know what to look at. I'm confident that I'm not going to fall. I just have to like keep that fear monster away from me. But I had to earn that confidence. It's not something that I could go to therapy on or that I could work through on my personal time in my house. I have to run up the fucking mountain and be scared as hell and get back down and survive. It's very similar to psychedelics in general, you know? And then the next time I'm getting to the tippy top of that mountain, it's like, oh, I didn't die last time. And before you know it, you're confident.
Incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see a man in front of me that has a lot of flow in your life.
Yes.
And you know, I've been, have you ever read the book Stealing Fire?
I haven't, no.
Really profound book written by Jamie Wheel and Stephen Kotler.
Okay.
And, you know, it's been the most important book to me on my journey in terms of understanding these medicines and understanding the neurochemistry behind these medicines and behind flow states. And when you're running up these mountains and you're putting yourselves in a really high flow environment, you're in a situation that demands focus. You know, if you lose focus, you might die.
Sure,
so you're leaning
totally.
against, you know, a really, really powerful evolutionary driver, which is to survive. That's one of our it's sex and survival. Those are the two things that drive almost all of our behavior.
Sure.
And you know, so that is really inspiring to hear. And then with the psychedelics and I'm sure there's a lot of flow in your business too. So you know, it sounds like you've built a whole life around flow states. And,
Yes. Wow. Well said. That's very actually introspective for me. I haven't thought about it that way, but yeah, that's kind of what it has become. Very cool.
Flow is deeply therapeutic, deeply healing. There was a scientific article that came out. The folks at Imperial College of London, Robin Carhart-Harris, he's a leading scientist. That years back they put 3 subgroups of people into these fMRIs to monitor what was going on in their brain. They put experienced Olympic meditators, the people that have over 10,000 hours of meditation.
Wow.
They
Okay.
put people that are in flow, and they put people that are in psychedelic states. And they're showing that the brain activity in all 3 of them is the same. There's a decreased activity in the prefrontal cortex. It appears as though that nagging, always on inner critic that we have, it fucking goes offline. When we're in flow, it goes on, and we could dial in, we could be the best version of ourselves and be very focused. And that's so cool that you've you have. I hear so much of it, and I had to mention that. I was like, whoa, you got flow triggers everywhere. And
Thanks.
and,
Yeah. No, I'm kind of impressed with myself. Yeah. That's cool. That's what I've leaned into, and yeah, that inner critic. I mean, it was actually I think it was my therapist or my nutritionist or someone who told me when I was really going through it, starting this transformative period. They were saying that you have to treat all the voices in your head like a boardroom. And sometimes you just have to scream, shut the fuck up at the ones that aren't serving you. Why are you talking? We're here dealing with this problem. You're completely irrelevant. And I started practicing just triggering myself every time
Do you meditate? Do you meditate?
I don't actually meditate.
I'm surprised to hear that after all this conversation. I really am.
Yeah, you know? I wanna learn. There's seemingly nothing in between me and trying to do it. But if you're getting that time in nature,
that could very well serve that's a form of meditation. If you're, I don't know, how often are you driving up to the mountains?
I haven't gotten to do it all summer. It's so hot in LA, you'll die. And I
true.
Me and my girlfriend almost died of heat exhaustion last time we tried going for a hike. But it's just about to get cooler, and hiking season is back. And now I have a nice van, so I could just go somewhere and pull up and stay there for the day.
Awesome.
But yeah, I'm shit. Yeah, I lost my train of thought. Wow, you blew me away with the flow state thing. I didn't realize that's what I was chasing, and that's helped get rid of that inner critic. They're just never there. I never even question my performance. I look forward to finding out where I failed. That's my only indicator if you need to improve.
Wow.
Hey, this could have been better. Cool. I'm going to get to work on that immediately.
I'll tell you something that's really inspiring about flow. I think I mentioned this in a previous episode. Is the research in flow is staggering. Executives in flow are 500% more productive than executives out of flow. There was a McKinsey study.
Cool.
DARPA trained snipers in flow, and they learned 430% faster than snipers out of flow. There was creativity spikes. I believe that James Fadiman, did some studies, and there's creativity spikes of 400 to 700% more creative when people are in flow. So those are massively disruptive numbers, and I suspect that these psychedelics, because they put us into flow, and they're purported, and science is showing that they're tremendously effective in healing trauma. So these are, those numbers that I just talked about, those are highly disruptive numbers. Like,
absolutely.
If you harness those numbers, you can create some real change. And to think that is how our soldiers that are struggling with PTSD are finding a way out of that PTSD diagnosis and shedding that post-traumatic stress, moving on with their lives, becoming happy, healthy, and strong for their loved ones, and enjoying the freedoms that they fought for.
Yeah. You're so informed about this stuff. What is currently the best treatment for veterans?
The best treatment right now that is getting the most hype and is really leading the way is MDMA assisted therapy. It's best in terms of it's in phase 3 clinical trials with our federal government. But 2/3 of people that are engaging this treatment, 1 to 3 therapeutic sessions, you take a pill, you sit on a couch, you cry your eyes out, you feel that thing that you've ignored since you were 8 years old, and let go of that trauma. It appears as though people are recontextualizing the memory. And again, letting go of that thought energy, that emotional energy, and 1 to 3 therapeutic sessions, they're done taking pills moving forward. So
amazing.
MAPS is in the process with MDMA therapy of really throwing a wrench in this big pharma pill a day model that we've all been fed and led to believe is part of the human experience. But in addition to that, I would think, and there's limited studies on ayahuasca, but I would say that ayahuasca is even more, from just anecdotal reports of people that I know that have had healing experiences, is even more of a therapeutic tool.
And so ayahuasca is now, ignorant in some areas. Ayahuasca is a DMT experience over 12 hours.
4 to 6 hours, 6 to 8 possibly. And it's
As intense as like the other version.
No. It's a slow takeoff and a slow coming down. And the journey is because you had mentioned that you'd had experience with DMT before,
Yes.
the liftoff kind, and which I've never done.
Oh, you haven't?
I haven't. No.
Okay.
No, it just
hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened. I'm hearing a lot of people talk about this toad, and there's a little bit of intrigue, but then again, I'm feeling so good and happy, healthy, and strong, and like that was my original intention for engaging the medicines to begin with.
Sure. So you just don't have a use for it. I had the DMT for a while. Just had it years ago now, probably maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I had it just sitting in my house. I was afraid of using it. I'd been told how serious it was. I had listened to, some documentaries and just was somewhat informed about what DMT is. And one day I was like, that's it, I'm doing it. And I run into my place with my friends, and I was mentally preparing for this for a long time. So I had my dab rig that I was going to torch up, and I know it's going to taste like shit after, so like it will remain the DMT rig after that point. And I grab it, and I heard 55 milligrams is what you needed to break through. And so I tried my best to like weigh it out or eye it out. And then I sit down, I'm like looking, I have 2 of my friends there with me to make sure like nothing funny happens, and I'm torching it up.
They were your
like,
guides. You need to have a guide. That's and a powerful, like, no joke experience. Somebody to watch your physical body.
Make sure that I'm okay. And I'm like, I'm doing this, and they're like, all right, we're watching you do this, and I'm like, I'm doing it, and they're like, okay. And then I pour it in there, and I inhale, and the moment I start exhaling, I hear the sound of the air conditioner turn into a fractal.
Wow.
The sound, I've never heard sound fractalized before.
Synesthesia is the term for that, when our senses merge.
And I just exhaled, and I immediately thought, holy shit, nothing I've been told about this has prepared me for what I am feeling right now at all. And I lay down, and I think I actually blacked out, because all I know is that I don't see any of the colors. I don't see any of the stuff that people normally describe. I don't see any of the elves. I'm not attacked by any beings. I just end up in a cosmic beach filled of an infinite number of grains of sand, and I'm one of them. And I feel like I'm at home.
Wow.
I feel like I'm just at home. I exist, but I don't exist. I can't think about my existence. There's no thoughts. There's probably what it feels like to be in your mother's womb. There's just this feeling of home without any other thoughts attached to it. And the next thing I know, I snap back into my body, and I jump up, and my friends are sitting there in the same positions they were in when I had gone. And I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck? I thought I had been like zapped back as a ghost or something. I just couldn't make sense of what I was going through. And then, God bless him, this is Avi also. Avi's like, 3 minutes. And that's what he says. And those 2 words.
It was only 3 minutes?
It was only 3 minutes.
Wow.
And he was like, time doesn't exist in this plane. So like the whole 15-minute trip thing that they say is like, that's cool for us human beings bound to this time. But when you're in a space where time doesn't seemingly exist, it's forever. So yeah, when I came back, once he said 3 minutes, I'm like, don't go there. It's death. It's death. What the fuck just happened? Don't go there. And then like 3 minutes later, I'm like, you should try it, dude. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Wow.
But it scared me. And when I've gone to give 1 or 2 other friends, and then I stopped doing that entirely, their own first experiences, because for the next 6 months after that, I was a hardcore atheist before that. And not that I believe in any God that man has written about or made in his own self-image. I can't say that there's nothing after this anymore.
Wow.
I just can't.
I'd love to hear that. It's very similar. The way that you worded that would be almost exactly how I would word that.
Yeah, it's and not knocking anyone that has, any religious beliefs or anything, but it's It's certainly the convincer that this is just one of the realities.
There's something greater. There's a higher intelligence. There's an infinite intelligence that's at play.
Yeah.
I feel that too.
So I gave it to another friend. He had a good time. I gave it to another friend. He had a terrible time and spent 6 minutes being attacked by mechanical alien beings and never broke through. And finally, when he stopped fighting them, he sobered up, and he didn't actually break through in the end. And after that, I was shaking as I was even like giving.
What are his thoughts months, maybe years removed?
He thought after that it was worth it, and it's what he needed.
Because usually there's this, a lot of the talk is that challenging is not bad. I mean, a lot of these difficult experiences that we have at first, oh my God, that was awful. But then we, 2, 3, 4 weeks out, a couple months out, we're like, holy shit, like I needed to see that. I needed to go through that. I needed that lesson. Back kind of going full circle to what we were talking about earlier, that growth mindset of just, if it's truth, then I want to see it. Even if it's ugly, like I want the truth.
I mean, he was going through something at the time that was grossly negative in his life. And that might have manifested in that place, but DMT is heavy. I try to warn everyone against it. Not that I tell people like, don't do it, but it's not a party thing. It's something it's going to change you. It will.
Very disruptive medicine.
Yes.
And it needs to be held with the deepest reverence and understanding of why are you engaging this medicine to begin with? I think that's a question that we need to be asking ourselves.
I wish I knew I just wasn't ready. I don't think anyone is ready. This is outside of the human experience. This is unlike mushrooms. It's unlike acid. It's unlike anything else. This reality is fragile, and it's never felt as fragile as the exhale of DMT. That's when you're like, holy shit, this can all go away in a moment. It can feel like this was just all but a dream.
DMT is a simulated death experience, and that was the experiences that I had with ayahuasca, is simulating death.
It's even scarier, ayahuasca.
And,
I feel
absolutely.
like you're a wild man.
Yeah, and the degree to which I'm a big believer, the degree to which we know and understand our darkness is the degree to which we can stand and share our light. Yeah. And when we so much of the craziness we see in our society, I believe, I'm going to cite Ernest Becker. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner who wrote The Denial of Death in the early 70s. And his premise was that all the crazy shit that we see in our world, all the neurotic behavior is all a denial of one's own mortality. And cool. The minute that we accept paradoxically, the minute that we accept that we're going to die and we understand death, is when, and it was for me, after this simulated death experience, I was like, holy shit, now I can live, and and that was when I came alive, and really was connected to my heart space and to my humanity, and seeing these abundant, almost like you described earlier, these amazing, awe-stricken things that are here right in front of our nose, and they're here, and we have this beautiful human experience, and so often we're tied up in that story, and it helped me break that story.
Yeah, well said. I mean, the story is what keeps us, prisoners. I just listened to something where Terence McKenna was talking about like the toxicity of culture. Not that all culture is bad or anything like that, but the constructs that we're born into. And I'm a born New Yorker. Like, I'm taught to be willfully ignorant and proud of it and loud, and a lot of things that once I was able to really start letting it flow, it was like, well, what do I want to be? Why am I all of these things? Your story is very, very important. The one you sell yourself on in this reality. It'll determine what you see, where you can go, what you can reach, how much you can love, all of that. So very cool. So ayahuasca was highly beneficial for you would say.
Yeah. I would highly recommend it for somebody who's earnestly looking to heal from trauma, or to just find out what they're made of, really, truly.
I wish everyone would take it, just so we can all agree, like, that shit's crazy, right? Like, just so we can all be like, what the fuck is going
crazy.
on in that space?
It's a crazy, ineffable experience. You know,
Yeah.
I've heard you say multiple times when talking about the DMT, it's just something you can't describe.
Yeah.
And that's one of the challenges of the experience, but it's one of the beauties of it. I think it teaches us to be okay with the mystery. You know, like leaning into the mystery of where did we come from? Where are we going? How come no one's talking about it? You know,
Sure.
and you know, and then
yeah. I mean, man, I maybe I should start doing like more research or seeing like what other people are saying out there. I'm just curious to know like what scientifically can we learn from it. I feel like there's been a lot.
There's loads.
There's a lot of urban legends when it comes to DMT, and I think it's an urban legend that it's released when you die, right? I don't think that's actually. Is that true? Is it not true? I might have heard that was like.
I think that it's supported that
it is
by
supported.
science. Yeah, that we have a surge of dimethyltryptamine when we die, and you know it's called the spirit molecule. So it takes us, and the experience of ayahuasca takes us into the spirit realm. You know, and it. You know, it sounds a little woo-woo, but that's the
hard to talk about this stuff without getting woo-woo.
It's a deep spiritual experience that you know, for me, it allowed me to see myself objectively. I'd struggled immensely with childhood sexual trauma and struggled with addiction and you know, PTSD, and I had behavioral challenges. And for me to have that experience where, you know, for a 4 to 6 hour period, I wasn't my trauma. I wasn't my behavior. I was, you know, to have that high level view of my life and to see objectively ways in which I could shift and change to be a better person, to be more loving, to be more conscious, to treat myself better, to, you know, to have those conversations that maybe I ignored for a long time. And that those were some of the big lessons that I felt, and I feel called to share. And, you know, I wrote a book about the experience. I was like, shit, I have a moral duty and obligation after my healing that I've had. This shit has got to be shared because we're in the midst of a mental health crisis.
Agreed.
Our veterans are dropping like flies to suicide. We have, I think, a quarter of us are on psychiatric medication.
The world
depression surging, addiction surging.
The world is changing too. People are going to have less jobs in the future, right? Because of automation. We're going to have a massive fulfillment problem in the world.
Yes.
That's going to be a thing and it might be things are so good that humans just have so little to worry about. But when we have little to worry about, when we're not fulfilled, we fucking kill each other. And I that's why I see like what you're doing is truly like, you know, I don't want to say God's work, we'll say the plant's work. But it's important. It's important that people find a path to their fulfillment, whether they use these medicines or not.
Yeah, these are just an aggressive tool.
These are cheat code,
and
you know?
Totally. There's a huge laundry list of other ways and other ways to get into these experiences that, you know, some of which we talked about today, going out in nature, you know, hiking, meditation, yoga, sex, extreme sports, all these different things. Fasting has been a huge level up for me. I started intermittent fasting a few years back. And occasionally, like yesterday, I skipped. I was preparing for this meeting and wanted to make sure that I was at my best, and I'd had a kind of an action-packed food and we didn't get heavy on the booze or anything, but even a couple glasses of wine, you know, I felt like I needed a day detox, and I had a full 24-hour coffee fast yesterday.
Cool.
And it's something that I'm finding more ROI on these coffee and green tea fasts than any other, in a way for me to get into flow than any other way. Which is something I think there's all sorts of science coming out with fasting, and they call it autophagy. It's our shit cells essentially are getting eaten by good healthy cells. So there's loads of science to support that happens.
I would fast by just I would try to like only eat between the hours of like 1 p.m. and 7 p.m.
That's money. That's the intermittent fasting, the 6 hours on,
Yeah.
18 hours off.
And it makes sense to me, right?
Yeah.
Humans back in the day, we weren't eating 24 hours a day. So like it's also one of those cool things that's fun to practice on yourself. It's very empowering to know, like, if I feel like shit today and I think not eating is going to make me feel better, I have the ability to do that without suffering greatly. It's really empowering to know that you have that much control over your vessel.
You're training your will.
Yeah.
You know, food is a big aspect, and surely you can attest to that from someone who's lost 100 pounds. Like,
totally.
Like we hide a lot behind our food, and we're having a shit day. Oh, let's bust out the ice cream. Let's but it's like, exactly. No, maybe we breathe through, or we sit through whatever we're going through, instead of hiding behind, you know, burgers and fries and you know, root beer shakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although I love my root beer shakes.
Root beer shakes are amazing. I haven't had one in so long. I avoid sugar so much these days. That's the one. That's like the one poison I just try to fucking avoid. I love it so much. It's so good.
Wow,
but
that's admirable, because that's a tough one.
I mean, I could have fruits and stuff. Sure, it's just like refined.
But the refined,
exactly,
that's toxic.
Yeah, it's so bad for you. But I love it so much. You completely distracted me with the root beer float. Sweet.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate your time here, Roger. And, you know, are there any parting words that you'd like to share with our audience? Maybe something that you would recommend somebody who is interested in coming on the psychedelic path, perhaps? Any advice that you would give to them?
I would say my best advice would be, at least coming from my experience, to microdose mushrooms and to remember to listen to the plants. I mean, all of these medicines are going to put thoughts in your head, and it's kind of odd, but those thoughts usually serve you. They usually open up a brighter reality. They usually have you feeling more connected to this reality, to the people in your life, to the challenges you might face. It's really helpful to at least try this journey, especially if you're a skeptic. It would be really powerful to know what maybe you're against. So start off small, listen to the plants, and if you're a skeptic, please try it and see if it can help you.
Love that. Beautiful, wonderful advice. Where can people find you?
They could
connect with you.
Yeah, my personal Instagram page is Jolly Roger NYC. My company page is Puffco on Instagram. You can see all of our products on puffco.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for your time, and thank you for the work that you do, the pioneering work you do in the cannabis space. It really matters, and I'm super grateful that we had this opportunity, and thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that this podcast and even exists, and that your book exists, and you're putting in the good work out there. Thank you so much.
I appreciate your kind words. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to my podcast conversation with Roger. I really enjoyed our spirited discussion. I'm wowed and proud and inspired by Roger's openness and vulnerability, and his willingness to share his experiences so others might make more transparent decisions moving forward. There was so many golden nuggets of insight that was shared by Roger about his growth mindset as well. If this content of this episode resonates, please consider subscribing to the Worth the Fight podcast. And if you found value in this conversation, please consider leaving an iTunes review. The reviews help the Worth the Fight podcast garner favor with the Apple search algorithms to get these powerful personal stories out to our world, again, broadening our reach and audience. Virtually everything we talked about in our podcast, I cover more in-depthly in my book, Worth the Fight, which is available now on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. Yep, there is an 8.5-hour audiobook read by me, the author. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast and the Worth the Fight Creative Project. I have so many more exciting guests in the queue. Things are heating up a bit. We're super excited over here. All the best till next time. Again, thanks so much for the love and support.